Well, every religious tradition that has survived has, among other things, importantly provided some explanation of suffering and of death. Not explaining it away, but some way to make a kind of sense of it, sufficient in order to tolerate it, in order to live in the face of it. So religion has been and is extremely important in terms of our understandings of death. On the other hand, I do a lot of work in medical ethics, and along with that, I have a fair amount of experience at the clinical level, in a clinical context, and also talking with persons as they face death or illness, long-term illness, either for themselves or for others. And I've come to the conclusion that how someone faces death cannot be directly correlated with, for example, they believe in an afterlife or they don't believe in an afterlife. They believe in God or they don't believe in God. What they believe is important in terms of their approach to death and suffering. But it does not correlate that if you believe in an afterlife, you are less afraid of death or more afraid of death because of how you see what's going to happen in an afterlife. It doesn't correlate. Similarly, it doesn't correlate that if you don't believe in an afterlife, then you're more anxious to stay alive as long as you can, and you're afraid of death because it's nothing. No, the truth is, everyone has to come to terms with death in their future, either imminently or remotely, with the possibility of great suffering, diminishment in mind and body. And what's important is that we come to terms with it. Now, I think it probably would be fair to describe the way anyone comes to terms with it as religious, but it could look very different. So, for example, I recently had a conversation with a middle-aged woman, I guess she's in her 40s, and she said to me very peacefully, and she's not dying or anything, she was just talking about her worldview, so to speak. And she used to be a person who belonged to quite intimately to a religious tradition, of organized religion. But she told me that she had learned that it could mean a lot if you accepted the notion of nothingness. And as she spoke about it, and as I reflected upon it after that, I could see how that would be true. On the other hand, I felt somewhat sad. Knowing this woman, I think that perhaps accepting the notion of nothingness is for her a kind of journey, and in terms of her searching for meaning and faith. But that she could even face that and then know that she could face anything. That seems to me quite wonderful and a kind of ultimate stance that could be called religious. On the other hand, I know persons of some religious traditions who do not take an afterlife seriously, which includes many believing Jews, which includes some believing Christians for that matter. And for them that means that they have to do all they can in life. It doesn't make anything meaningless in life. It means maybe that they have to care for one another even more because they can't count on someone else caring for them. I also know many people who believe in an unlimited future, a death but then a new life. And depending on the depth of this belief, this can help them make sense of their death and everyone else's death. And I've seen them help others make sense of it in those terms. But any of these beliefs, whether it's nirvana, whether it's whatever, whether it's reincarnation, any of these beliefs, it seems to me, if they're held superficially, are not helpful in addressing the sort of ultimates in our life, death being one that we all have to face in common, and the one thing finally we have to do. But it does not help, and no understandings help, and there are lots of people who just simply won't think about it. They abstract from it. This is just not on their radar screen as long as they can avoid it. And if the understandings are superficial, then you just have to avoid it. But whatever it is that makes the most sense of life and death for someone, the deeper it is understood, the more directly it is faced, then it is